it, he buzzed again, but she appeared in the darkened lobby and unlocked the door herself. As soon as she saw him, she took him by the arm without speaking. There were other residents returning home at the same time, but she put him in an empty elevator and stepped in behind him before anyone saw him. When they began their ascent, she said, "I won't ask what happened to your forehead. That I can treat with ice. But you have a fever, a bad one. I can tell by looking at you." With discomfort in his voice, he said, "I can tell by being me." "As soon as we get you into my flat, I want you to lie on the settee." "What's this, settee?" "It's the couch you used 3 years ago." "Right." "I'm going to give you a course of IV antibiotics and some pain meds. I also have something for energy, but you'll want to wait till morning to take." "First, I need a place to make a phone call, in private." "Look at you. You're about to pass out." "I already did pass out, so I guess I'm well rested." She looked at him like he was insane. "You're anything but well." "It's a joke. Please, a 5-minute phone call and then I'm all yours." When they got off on her floor, she led him up a flight of wooden stairs, and then onto the roof of the building. There were a few plants and chairs there for the residents, but this late at night, it was empty and quiet. The young woman left him alone, and he called Brewer using his Signal encryption app. She answered, gave her his ID credentials, and then he said, "Zoya and Ennis had a 2-man team on them tonight. She went to her room, so I followed one of the men when he started to tail on Ennis. He made me. We got into it, and I..." "Were you 2 blocks away from the Adlon?" Court replied. "Yeah, more or less. Anyway, You killed him," Brewer said. "No, I didn't kill him." "You killed him," Brewer said. "No, I didn't kill him. I rang his bell, busted his nose maybe, but he'll be fine. He could have been Russian, but he also could have been..." Brewer interrupted. "Less than 90 minutes ago, 2 blocks away from the Adlon Kempinski, a man was killed. He was an officer in the BFV. Are you going to tell me you didn't do it?" "BFV? Shit." He thought back to his encounter outside the Hilton. After a moment, he said, "There was a gunshot. The man I fought had a partner. He couldn't race him. Somebody must have..." "Somebody? Even if it wasn't you, if you got your face on any cameras in the area, it's not going to look good." "Maybe they were going after Anthem," Court said. "Has she checked in?" Brewer did not hesitate an instant. "I just spoke with her. She's fine. She heard the gunshot too, but says she was in her suite with the door locked when it happened." "Thank God," Court thought. Now Brewer said, "Listen very carefully, Violator. Security is going to be even tighter around Anthem's hotel, around the embassy too." "Because the murder happened near the U.S. Embassy?" "That and other reasons." Court understood. "Yeah, the thing Hanley keeps hinting at. Are we looking Iran or something?" It was a joke, generated by a brain that was barely conscious, and told by a man who wasn't in a good mood. But Brewer didn't seem to take it as a joke at all. "Something," she said. "Seriously?" "I want you to cease your surveillance of Anthem and find Annika Dittenhofer," Brewer said next. "Anthem is the only reason I'm here." "Anthem is safe. She'll be in her hotel tomorrow, not in the field." "All right," he said. "If you can assure me Anthem is secure, that the Russians don't know about her being in Berlin, and that she's going to remain in place for the next day, I'll go after Dittenhofer." "I can assure you of all these things. Get back to work." Court hung up, slipped his phone into a pocket, and sat there in the warm evening. He had not told Brewer the complete truth, and he imagined she hadn't told him the complete truth either. He would comply with her request that he find Annika Dittenhofer, eventually. But the right play for him right now was to somehow make contact with Zoya. They could work this together. He just had to find a way to do it where he didn't blow her cover. He shook his head to wake himself fully, then stood up on shaky legs. First things first, he told himself. He headed downstairs to Dr. Kaya's apartment, steadying himself on the stairs as he descended by dragging a shoulder along the wall. Suzanne Brewer hung up the phone in her office on the 6th floor of the McLean, Virginia headquarters of the CIA, then looked up and across her desk to Matthew Hanley. Usually the DDO had loosened his tie and removed his jacket by now. It was after 5 p.m. after all. But though he was neither a slave to protocol nor to fashion, at the moment he wore his best suit, his crispest white shirt, and a muted blue necktie secured under his collar in a full Windsor. Brewer was subordinate to the DDO, but she was supremely sure of herself. The DDO, on the other hand, wore his conflicting thoughts on his face. "We said we'd pull Anthem if the Russians found her. She just called you and told you the Russians found her." Brewer did not hesitate in her reply. "It's too early to pull her. When she called a half hour ago, I told her as much." "I agree, unfortunately." Then Hanley asked, "Where the hell was Violator tonight? He was supposed to be watching Anthem's ass." Brewer said, "He was off scene, tailing someone else. He doesn't know anything about what happened to Anthem." Hanley said, "It was the right call, unfortunately, not telling Court about Anthem's encounter with the Russian tonight. How is Zoya now?" Brewer nodded. "I told her we'd put Berlin Station on her to watch her back. That settled her down a little." Hanley sighed. "Yeah, well, we can't do that, can we?" "Of course not. Berlin Station would be uncovered via Power Slave, and that would compromise Anthem. Plus, we do not want to get into a war with Russian intelligence, even if this bunch after her are mafia hitters working in the interests of Moscow but not under their direct employ. This shooting tonight is going to make everything harder, I suppose, but it doesn't change our critical need for intel." Hanley looked at his watch, then pulled himself up to his feet. "Well, I've got to get to the White House. I will be there for the rest of the night." He paused. "Listen, I need everything I can get from both of the Poison Apple assets. By tomorrow morning, I expect we are going to be dealing with a ticking clock." "You still can't tell me what's about to happen tonight?" He shook his head, then shrugged a little. "I can tell you that what we are about to do is as righteous as anything we've ever done. But it sure as hell is not about making this shitty world a safer place." Hanley grabbed his briefcase and headed for the door. When she was alone, Suzanne Brewer took a few calming breaths, and she thought about everything that was going on in Berlin. The Iranians were her enemy, of course, but as far as she was concerned, so were Anthem and Violator. Working with them in the Poison Apple program had unquestionably stunted her career, and she wanted nothing more in this world than to be away from Matt Hanley, away from Zoya Zakharova and Zach Hightower, and far, far away from Court Gentry. It was the only way forward for her, but for now, she knew she had to be the good soldier and do her job. Court lay on the sofa in Dr. Azrakaya's small but comfortable flat, with an IV stuck in his left arm and a bag of antibiotics and saline hanging from a floor lamp next to him, dripping slowly but steadily through the line and into his bloodstream. He wore an ice pack on his forehead, and his pistol was hidden from the civilian in the small of his back under him. The infusion of antibiotics did nothing to make Court feel better. That would happen only after weeks of regular doses. But the other things she had given him, anti-inflammatories, narcotic painkillers, B vitamins, and bottled water with electrolytes for hydration, were taking the edge off his aches, pains, and general malaise. Azrakaya had taken it upon herself to feed the injured operator as well. While the IV emptied slowly into his arm, Azra made a simple dinner of pork cutlet and mashed potatoes with sauerkraut, and Court wolfed down his portion while she sat nearby at the table and ate. He washed down a swallow of food with fortified water, but before taking his next bite, he said, "Something bad happened tonight, not far from here. It will be on the news. I want you to know I had absolutely nothing to do with it." He motioned to his forehead. "This is not from that." In truth, he had something to do with the killing of the BFV man tonight. He hadn't shot the man he had been pitted against, but the man killed might have had a partner there to back him up if Court hadn't taken the other man's attention. He didn't know, but he also didn't feel terrific about knocking the shit out of a German intelligence officer who had just been doing his job. "What happened?" Kaya asked. "A man was killed, a German government employee." She put her fork down and turned to him. "If you didn't have anything to do with it, then why are you telling me?" Court swigged more water, then shrugged. "I don't really have an answer. I guess I want you to know I'm not the kind of person who would do that." But was he? he questioned. Azra said, "My oath is to treat my patients to the best of my ability. I am doing that with you. I don't know who you are, or what you have or have not done. I can't even let myself care." Court sensed that she did care, but he said, "Okay, that's fair. But I'm here for good, not bad." The doctor stood up from her empty plate, lifted the frosty bag off Court's forehead, and looked at the bruise there. He could see his reflection in a mirror behind the sofa. Though the ice was doing its job keeping the swelling to a minimum, it was still purple and slightly raised. Dr. Kaya said, "I get the strong impression that someone didn't feel the same way." Court smiled. Clearly he did not. He looked up at her. "I don't get it." She replaced the ice. "Get what?" "Why do you do this? Why do you let fucked up strangers in your house like this? I realize you are getting paid, but you don't seem the type." "You don't seem fucked up." "Oh, I guarantee you, I am." She smiled at this, thought over his question for a moment. Finally, she said, 3 years ago, when I was new at the hospital, a fourth-year med student and an old family friend, also a doctor from Turkey, took me aside and asked if I wanted some help paying off my school loan, to earn some extra money. He was retiring and moving back to Ankara. He introduced me to a Frenchman who said he would pay me a small retainer every month to be ready at any moment to treat patients outside the hospital system. I was scared at first, but I needed the money, and I worried about what care these people would receive if they could go to no doctor at all. Plus, it's not illegal to give medical care to a criminal, so I said yes. The Frenchman told me I might not hear from him for years, but just a month or so later, he came late at night. A man was on his way to see me, and I needed to be prepared to treat a traumatic injury. I was off work that night, and was afraid to try to sneak a wounded man into the hospital, but my apartment was quiet, and I could get whatever I needed from a minor care clinic nearby, where I worked on one of my rotations. So I sat there and waited. Court jumped in, and I showed up. She went back to her chair at the table and sat down. I felt good about what I did because I could tell you were a nice man. That, and the money, ensured I would continue working for the Frenchman. It's been over 3 years now. Her face grew darker, and she let out a sad little sigh. I've yet to meet another nice man doing this. I'm sorry. Dr. Kaya shrugged. I don't know who the people who are sent to me are, where they come from, what they have done. But there have been 8 so far, all badly injured. 1 did not survive. She seemed pained by this. I believe in their work. Everyone deserves a chance at life, and I can give them that chance. But the other men have been more difficult. She looked up at him now. Why were you different? She asked. He said, That night, I'm used to stuff like that. But it was a tough time for you, I could see that. I felt bad. After a moment, he added, I was lonely. It's part of the job, but when you do meet someone outside of the work, it reminds you what normal people are like. You were normal. Are you still lonely? Court hesitated. Sometimes. Then he added, But that's not why I'm here. She laughed nervously as she stood from her table again. Yes, of course it's not. She came over and checked the IV bag. The pain meds were kicking in, and he was fed and comfortable. He felt energized. He still needed sleep, or at least he needed the Adderall she'd given him to keep going. But he couldn't take the pills just yet, and he wouldn't sleep until he got back to his little flat in Spandau. More than anything, though, he wanted to talk to Zoya. He knew what Hanley and Brewer thought of the matter, that it would be too dangerous for him to make direct contact with her, but he told himself there had to be a way, because Zoya was in too much danger now to keep going forward undercover. German intelligence officers were definitely following her, and he thought it likely Russian assassins would soon arrive to kill her. and he had been compromised to some sort of paramilitary unit that was trying to kill him. He needed to speak to Zoya to convince her to get out of town before it was too late. Dr. Kaya stepped back over and gently pulled the IV out of his arm, bringing him back to the moment. He climbed to his feet and immediately realized he'd recovered a lot of his strength in the past hour. I really appreciate it. You might feel a little euphoric, revitalized, but remember, you need to take it easy. Nobody sends me anywhere for easy. He pulled a wad of euros from his pocket. Here's 5,000. Is that enough? That's plenty. For the week. 2 if you are around. Reach out whenever you need me. She reached down and picked up a paper bag from the table. Everything you need is in here. Use the Adderall sparingly. 20 milligrams maximum at any one time, no more than twice a day. Remember, it is to keep you awake and alert. It's not to turn you into Superman. You got it. He left Dr. Kaya's building just after midnight, climbed into a taxi nearby, and headed back to Spandau. He would walk the street for a while, and then return to his Spartan little flat. He had work to do still, and then he'd get a couple hours sleep. Tomorrow, he told himself, he would execute his quickly forming plan to make contact with Zoya. 41. General Vahid Rajavi looked at his diamond-encrusted gold watch by pulling back the sleeve of his white shirt. Then he sat up straighter in the cabin chair of the Airbus A320 and smoothed out the wrinkles in his suit coat. As the commander of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps' Quds Force, he never wore military dress when he was outside official functions in Tehran. He instead preferred to blend in, at least as well as any man with 11 bodyguards can blend in anywhere. He was the military intelligence chief of the Islamic Republic of Iran. The threats against him were manifest, so he and his team took every precaution possible. The plane touched down at Baghdad International Airport at 3:15 a.m. Rajavi was greeted by a Shia representative of the Iraqi government, and then they all piled into 7 vehicles and left the tarmac in single file. A minute later, they were through the first gates and on Airport Street, an access road that would take them off BIAP property to the east on their way to the city. There was little conversation. It had not been a long or arduous flight, but the Iranians who climbed off the Airbus had a full day of clandestine meetings ahead of them. And while Rajavi was anxious to get started with them, his protectors were anxious to get him back onto the plane and back into Iranian airspace. They rolled along in near silence. Next to them, a Silkway Airlines Antonov AN-24 cargo plane landed on the runway, then slowed, turned onto a taxiway, and headed towards the terminal. General Rajavi redirected his attention forward, out the windshield, as they drove to the airport exit. The 5 men in the Quds Force commander's vehicle just looked out at the road ahead of them, through their headlights, each with different thoughts, all kept to themselves. And then, 1 instant later, they simply ceased to exist on this earth. As far as the commander of Quds Force and the rest of his entourage were concerned, when the missiles hit, there was no sound, and there was no light. The noise and the light came after, but Rajavi and his entourage missed it all. The impact of the 4 Hellfire missiles, fired simultaneously from a pair of U.S. Air Force Reaper drones flying 42 miles from Baghdad and 35,000 feet above the desert, sent a shockwave across the airport and lit a row of glowing pillars of fire, while the scattered remains of the victims lay motionless along the road and in the brown grass alongside it. Fires burned all around, and wreckage blazed and smoked. It would take a little time for locals to confirm the death of General Vahid Rajavi. His distinctive watch was attached to a severed left arm found 64 meters away from his burning SUV, and a charred, still body, missing the same appendage, sat motionless in the center of the fire. Matthew Hanley had been in the White House Situation Room with the President of the United States and other national security staff as they watched the feed in real time, but it wasn't until 2 hours later that official word came in. Hanley woke to the ringing secure telephone next to his bed as a summer storm whipped the air outside. "Yeah," he said, battling with the hoarseness of sleep. "Deputy Director, it's done." "Confirmed, KIA." "Confirmed." "Collateral." 18 dead, including bodyguards and an emissary for the Iraqi government. Someone from their diplomatic corps as well. Hanley nodded into the phone, then said, "To hell with them." "I'd say that's a safe bet, Deputy Director." Hanley hung up, then listened to the rain, the wind, and the rumbling thunder as the storm passed over D.C. He wasn't going to grieve for the fucking general of cunts. The man had the blood of hundreds of Americans on his hands, and that of thousands, tens of thousands of other men, women, and children. Nor did he grieve for those close enough to Rajavi's inner sanctum of evil to be driving along in a convoy in Iraq on a mission to sow only more discord. But he was worried, because he knew this meant a response would be coming at a time and place of Iran's choosing, and he did not feel like his agency was adequately prepared to deal with it. 42. The news from Baghdad filled Sultan al-Habsi with beaming pride as he sat at a desk in the residential quarters at the UAE embassy on Hiroshima Strasse in the center of Berlin. His thoughts were on his plans, those already realized and those still to come. He considered calling his father right now, but he decided to let the old man sleep a couple more hours. He would be told by his aides at the hospital upon wakening, and he would know for certain that his son had prognosticated this just days earlier. Sultan, even as operational director of the Signals Intelligence Agency, had made tonight happen. He had personally orchestrated the killing of the man responsible for the deaths of both of his brothers. His plan had involved using the Americans as proxies. He had no way to kill the most well-protected Iranian himself. His own intelligence outfit was struggling in Yemen. They were hardly capable of finding, fixing, and finishing a target as elusive as the commander of Quds Force in Iran. But Sultan did have a weapon at his disposal. He was a key and respected informant for American intelligence. They relied on him for his knowledge of the region and its actors, and he could begin tailoring his intelligence product in a way that would, over time, place a large red X on the head of General Rajavi. And this is exactly what he did. It took 5 months, but a Quds Force operative in Baghdad spoke a cryptic code over his phone, a code the SIA had deciphered. The man told a compatriot in Tehran that everything was ready for the visit, and then it was simply a matter of tracking the aircraft Rajavi always used to make his international flights on the night mentioned in the code. Killing Rajavi had always been a possibility for the Americans, but in the past they had been leery of fomenting Shia anger to new heights. But when the Europeans relaxed sanctions, the Iranians killed American soldiers in Syria, and there seemed to be no way to stem the tide of a new Iranian ascendancy. The Americans, after listening to the good counsel of al-Habsi, the CIA's #1 ally in the Middle East, decided a blow needed to be struck at the heart of Iranian military intelligence leadership. And this they did. It was all going to plan for Sultan, except for the American, Gentry, who had somehow appeared in Venezuela and then again today here in Berlin. Al-Habsi had no idea what his knowledge was about all this, nor what his relationship was to all this. Hades had lost another member of his team today attempting to take the former paramilitary operations officer down, and this noise and attention on the periphery of Al-Habsi's operation was now a clear and present danger to the entire scheme. Al-Habsi had Power Slave operating, searching for the American, and he hoped like hell he could both A, get another hit on the man's whereabouts, and B, get Hades and his remaining operators there in time to eliminate him. Otherwise, there was no telling how much trouble the Gray Man might cause. He successfully pushed this one wrinkle out of his mind, and he thought about his ultimate objective. He wanted war between the great superpower of America and the evil Shia regime in Iran, and this would happen only after the next stage of his plan was initiated. Al-Habsi felt betrayed by the Americans and the Europeans. The Americans talked a good game. Diplomatically, they pressured Iran to some degree, and they spent a lot of money spying on Iran's nuclear program. But getting the president to greenlight this necessary targeted assassination had been like pulling teeth, and he knew Washington had no plans to escalate pressure on the Shias. and the Europeans made no pretense that they were all but allied with Iran. Sultan al-Habsi realized that America and Europe were not his allies. They were instead impediments to his goal. So he felt no qualms about them suffering collateral damage. He was pleased his father had lived to see Rajavi's death, and he prayed the old man would stay around for the finale of the show. Kort slept on a pile of towels and clothing arrayed on the bathroom floor of his Spandau apartment, aided by the pain medication taking the brunt of the sting out of his shoulder and the spot above his right eyebrow that he had used to break the nose of a German intel officer. He woke to the clock radio on the floor just outside his bathroom turning on. It was 6 a.m., which meant he'd slept almost 4 hours, and he felt not good, but not too bad. There was a bustle outside as people headed out on the street. Then he heard footsteps on the stairs right outside his thin walls. He slid his hand up to his Glock pistol lying on the cheap vinyl floor next to his head and wrapped his fingers around the grip. But the footsteps continued on past his door. The radio was turned to Deutsche Welle, a news station, and a breaking story began a few seconds later. It was in German, but Kort picked up the majority of the correspondent's words. General Vahid Rajavi, the Quds Force chief shithead, had been killed in a missile strike in Iraq. The German media speculated that the attack was carried out by either America or Israel, but as Kort sat up, rubbed his eyes, and then massaged his shoulder distal of where he'd been stabbed, he had no doubt what had happened. Matt Hanley had warned that something big was about to go down, something that would not necessarily make the world a safer place. America had blown the Iranian general straight to hell. Kort had no doubt. Rajavi was a prick. This Kort knew without question, so it was debatable as to whether this would have a net positive effect on planet Earth. It all depended on what Iran and its proxies did in retaliation. There was speculation about this on the German news as well. Protests were a given, violence was expected, and some sort of military response from Iran was all but assumed. The second story was less surprising to Kort, though it would be a shock to most anyone else in Berlin. A German government intelligence official had been murdered in the center of the city the evening before, the victim of a gunshot wound. There was little information about the victim, and no description of the killer was given. He wondered if that would change, and he wondered if someone fitting his description might eventually be implicated. Kort pulled himself to his feet with the help of the sink next to him. He caught a glimpse of his face in the mirror. The bruise above his eye was just a faint, dull gray, and he credited Dr. Kaya's care for that. He'd thought through his next course of action while lying on the bathroom floor the evening before. He knew he was supposed to begin his hunt for Annika Dittenhofer. That was what Brewer and Hanley wanted out of him. But he'd come here to help Zoya. If Brewer was telling the truth, then Zoya would be holed up in her hotel suite all day. A suite made safe enough with cameras and security, but a suite Kort had no doubt at all he could get into. He fished 20 milligrams of Adderall out of a bottle and popped it into his mouth, along with an antibiotic and several anti-inflammatories. He'd stay off the narcotics throughout the day, despite the pain, because he needed to be extra sharp for what was about to come. After a shower, he shaved off his beard for the first time in months, then took a razor to his head, buzzing the whole thing. He wasn't bald, his dark hair remained, but he looked completely different now. If he'd been picked up on cameras around the Adlon the night before, he wouldn't be recognized there today. Unless Power Slave got him, he told himself, with no small amount of concern. He left the apartment at 7 a.m., a man reborn via certain artificial enhancements, but a man reborn nonetheless. Zoya Zakharova had slept on a row of bed pillows she'd lined up in the large walk-in closet in her large two-room suite. She woke at 7 a.m., then reached up and fingered the small Sig Sauer P365 pistol she kept inches from her face. All the thoughts from last night came back to her in a flood. The walk through the memorial garden, the confrontation with Sorokina, the gunshot, and the shattering glass. It was more than a minute before she started thinking again about the operation Hanley had sent her to Europe to undertake, and she wondered if she would ever get the intel on Shrike Group the agency needed, especially now that she'd been so utterly compromised by the Russians. Who had exposed her? She'd lain in her faux bed in the closet for over an hour before sleep last night, trying to answer this very question. It had to have been Ennis, or this Miriam character, real name Tittenhofer, although she'd never met the woman. She didn't think it would have been Moises or Yanis, but she couldn't rule them out either. She checked her phone and found that a text had come in over the night from Suzanne Brewer. It was a link to a news article on UPI. Iranian general killed in drone strike. Zoya assumed this had happened in Yemen, but she clicked on the story. In seconds, she saw why Brewer had sent her the piece. Shit. So the US fragged the commander of Quds Force. When Zoya spoke with Brewer last night, just after her encounter with Ina Sorokina, Brewer had promised her that Berlin Station would put men on her, at a safe distance, to keep any Russian hit team at bay. It hadn't really calmed the Russian woman to learn this. She expected that Maxim Akulov and his team would run robust counter-surveillance of their own operation, and adapt accordingly. But even last night, Zoya had known her work was important. Someone was killing enemies of Quds Force in Berlin, and now she learned that this had been going on directly in advance of an American assassination of the Quds Force commander. This was no coincidence. She sat up slowly, the stress firing burning acid throughout her stomach. She told herself she was safe for now, at least in the hotel, and that exercise would help her calm down. She climbed out of the closet and headed to the bathroom, with plans to go downstairs to the gym. At the far end of the hallway, inside Suite 401, there was a flurry of activity. Semyon Pirvak stood shirtless in the bathroom, using his big, brawny arms to hold the much smaller and utterly naked Maxim Akulov under an icy shower to revive him from the lingering effects of the night before. In the suite, Ina Sorokina and Anya Balakova had dressed and armed themselves, and they had packed all their luggage save for what they needed for the assassination, placing all the Gucci bags by the door. They then returned to the 3 laptop workstations on the kitchen table to monitor the various camera feeds split onto 2 of the computers, as well as the real-time room service log on another. Zoya had slept in her closet. This, both women assumed, was due to Ina's encounter with her the night before, causing her enough terror to upset her normal routine. They'd only sat down and confirmed through the room service screen that Zakharova had yet to order her daily breakfast when they saw their target's closet door open to the bedroom camera. Zakharova stepped into the bathroom near the door, then exited it a few minutes later. Her 2 watchers fully expected her to go to the room phone to place her breakfast order, but instead, she got dressed in black tracksuit bottoms and a sweatshirt that read Universität Heidelberg. Balakova said, "She's adopting some kind of college student disguise, maybe?" Ina did not reply. She only watched.
I'm here, come out.
Kind of college student disguise, maybe? Ina did not reply. She only watched the feed. Both Russian women next saw their target slip a holstered pistol into a backpack, along with a one-piece swimsuit, a room key, and a few other items. Then she headed for the living room of the suite. Both Ina and Anya rose to their feet. Balakova ran to the door's peephole to look out, and Sorokina hurried back through the bedroom into the bathroom, where she encountered a very naked but surprisingly sober-acting Maxim. Semyon was no longer holding him. The assassin stood on his own 2 feet next to the shower, his impossibly lean and sinewy body covered with both scars and tattoos. He raised an eyebrow at his intelligence officer. Pirvak tossed him a towel, and Maxim nonchalantly secured it around his waist while she talked. "Zakharova is in the hall. She's leaving." "What's she wearing?" "Looks like workout gear. Swimsuit in her bag." "Then she's going to the gym." Maxim said it with confidence, then reached for his pack of cigarettes on the sink. "Hurry up," Sorokina demanded, then looked at Pirvak. "Put your shirt on. We can do this right now." She rushed back through the bedroom and into the living room, then leaned over the other woman on the team, who was again seated at the computers watching the screen. Balakova said, "She got off on the 2nd floor. Looks like she's heading to the spa." "What would it take to shut off all the cameras to the spa?" "A press of a few buttons, but I don't advise it." "Why not?" "You'd also want to control the cameras for Maxim's movement into the location. Doing the job here on the 4th floor would be a lot easier. I've pre-recorded the empty hall to play back during the hit. Hotel security won't see a thing. If you want Maxim to go down to the 2nd floor, kill her in the health club, and then get out of the building, I'll have to bring the entire system down. Easy to do, but hard to fool anyone as to what is happening.
Police will be here in minutes, and it definitely won't seem like natural causes when they find that the hotel cameras have been tampered with.
Maxime had followed Ina out of the bathroom, still wearing only the towel. We go with the original plan. She'll be hungry after her workout, and she'll order food and coffee when she gets back to her room. Ina looked again at Anya.
What about making entry on her room now? Lie in wait for her. I can open the door.
No, Pirvak said. This scenario benefits us. We use the time we have now while she's in the gym to get all the luggage out of the building except for 2 laptops and our weapons. When she comes back, we go in. Ina turned to Maxime.
When she calls for breakfast, they'll tell her 20 minutes, but you go in 15. We cut the cameras seconds before we open this door, and you take the cart. This needs to look like suicide. The best way to ensure that is to overpower her at gunpoint, put her in the tub, then slit her wrists. When she bleeds out, you leave. Then put the do not disturb sign on her door. No one from the hotel will enter all day.
She smiled.
We'll be in Moscow by then.
What about the real room service? Semyon asked. Anya Polakova answered this.
Just like in DC, I'll call and cancel it before it comes up. Spoof the phone in Zakharova's suite so they think it's her.
This made sense to everyone, Ina included. She turned to Maxime.
Put your room service attendant's uniform on and be ready.
He saluted the woman sarcastically, then turned on his heel, leaving a cloud of cigarette smoke behind.
Seatbelt.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Zoya opted for a swim in the large indoor pool. She put her backpack in a locker, leaving the door open while she put on the one-piece suit she'd bought upon arrival here at the Adlon once she saw the great pool. She pulled her little Sig Sauer from the pack and slid it up through a leg hole in her suit, eventually pushing it up around her midsection. She wouldn't be able to draw it especially quickly, but she reasoned if she met any threats while she was in the pool, having her gun on her, though inconvenient to access, would be better than the alternative. But she didn't really think it likely that she was in great danger now. Zoya knew a thing or two about Russian government-ordered extrajudicial
Chị Nga đợi giùm chút
and
nha,
all she
tại vì
knew on
Chi
the
nó đang
subject
hỏi mấy
told
bạn
her there was
để
no
chốt
way
cái lịch book
Maxine
vé á chị Nga.
would come into the center of a five-star hotel full of cameras for such a
Vâng.
reason.
Hồi nãy là
No,
Nhung nghe
if
Chi
the
nó đang
Russians
ấy á.
got her, she decided it would be by them running her
chị Nga.
down with an SUV as she stepped off the streetcar. Still, the pistol gave her the peace of mind she needed to dive into the pool. She swam laps, executed racing turns at each end, measured her breathing, felt the endorphins pumping into her brain. Exercise always helped her relax, but this morning it was difficult to think of anything more than the fact that the fabled Maxim Akhilov, an insane hitman of incredible skill, was here targeting her. And the only reason he would know to come here, to be able to find her, was that her masters had shrank and somehow slipped Moscow the intel. Wittingly or unwittingly, she had no idea. But for a woman who trusted no one, her mistrust had now reached a crescendo. She swam faster and faster, anxious to get her workout in and return to her room. Her plan to obtain intel for the CIA was thin today. This she knew, because her focus was fixed firmly on her other plan. Her plan to dodge Russian assassins.
Ủa, bé đang ấy đúng không? Bé đang tổng hợp với danh sách chị Nga mới gọi điện hỏi. Cái chị kêu là Khánh Chi nó đang làm á. Có gì chút nữa báo lên cái group order. Quý chị.
It was only 8 a.m., but Mirza had been upset when he perceived an cousin in Tehran telling him to check the news.
Tại vì Trâm bỏ là hồi sáng ok, nhưng mà có gì em hỏi lại mấy bé với giùm chị cái. Kim là ok, ok, cảm ơn em.
There were photos from the scene, and it was brutal. One close-in shot of the debris showed a severed arm, at the end of which a grave hand bore Rajavi's distinctive watch. Oz was an angry young man already. This, he knew instantly, sent him over the edge. And over the edge was exactly where he wanted to go for some time. As a 16-year-old boy, he'd been trained by the Iranian military. He'd shown special aptitude and unique intelligence, so he left the infantry and moved into special operations. He fought in Yemen, Syria, and Libya as a Quds Force paramilitary fighter. Mirza had been recalled to Tehran 3 years earlier,
Shortly after his 21st birthday, and ordered to study German with a light non-theft. In addition to his studies, he also met with higher-level Quds operatives, and they taught him tradecraft, more advanced weapons, and technology. When he was 22, he was no longer a zealous warfighter. He was a highly trained father. Yet he remained as firm as ever. When he was deemed ready by his mistress, he was secreted into Europe, given the papers he needed to find residence at work, and told to recruit a salary. And then, his value, he was told to. Mirza had been proud to serve on the vanguard of Iranian interests as a spy, but he became disillusioned with war when there was no more to do. He got a job driving a truck, and the recruited mostly worked in the trucking industry, and they all lived.
You have the key chain, right?
Mirza wanted to serve. He wanted to.
Chị ơi, em hỏi này xíu, ở ngoài Hà Nội á, mình làm Hà Nội là như thế nào đây?
Hà Nội là có chị Tracy chắc care rồi.
Rồi,
Mấy mình
chuyển tiền Tracy không hay sao?
có thì có gì để mai chuyển tiền để coi thử cái chốt cái số cái ứng dụng ngày mai đi ăn hoặc là tầm bao nhiêu gì đó là mai xin duyệt thì chuyển ngày mai luôn.
Rồi, ok vậy hả?
Ok.
He would see his there was no doubt he drawn up plans years ago before Germany and the rest of the EU relaxed their sanctions on Iran, and he merely had to receive his orders from Tehran. He and his men would no longer be told to remain in place, to abide by all local laws, and to wait for the day when they would be activated. No. Today
It's nice, right?
Yeah, it's nice. This is similar.
One of his
Ah,
plans was an
đẹp.
attack against American interests in
It's
the
good too.
Pacific.
Goes around here.
As he was certain America was the culprit in the death of the general, he expected this plan to be the one his orders centered on. Yes, Germany and the rest of the EU had relaxed their sanctions, but Mirza didn't care about the sanctions. He didn't care about politics. He didn't care about anything other than doing his job. And his job was that of an agent of literature. The West would call him a terrorist, but he knew that though his martyrdom would result in the death and destruction of many Americans here in Germany, he could never in a million years cause the terror that his people had undergone.
This chair's pretty comfortable. It's cushion.
Anh thấy cái đường này mấy bữa đi làm là đường đây nè. Traffic in the morning is up to
He would reconnect with his team, make sure they were in
6 p.m.
This isn't as bad as the morning.
Yeah.
He would do this
It's a little bit lighter.
as he almost always did, in order to avoid
If
phones or
the weather is raining, you have to leave
he
around
would
5
reach out
p.m.
to each man in his
If you leave around 6 p.m., maybe you go home 9 p.m.
and remind him of his duty.
8:30.
Tell him that the time for complacency is sacred,
Ah,
and that the reason they've all been chosen to train wood and raw
cái
wood
này
is soup.
mai về.
This, Ross and a couple of the others would
Mai
jump
về
in
anh
and then journey to his weapons
có
station
bột cam rồi.
where they would load several duffel bags of equipment into the vehicle and return to the capital. Ross Mirza was certain that at long last, real action was imminent, and he would be ready. Shortly before 8 a.m., a man in a dark gray sport coat over a collar-necked, starched dress shirt climbed out of a taxi in front of the Hotel Adlon Plaza, pulled his sunglasses off, and waited for the driver to pull his rollerboard out of the trunk. He paid the man, slipped his wallet back into his linen slacks, and wheeled his bag under the long red awning and into the lobby. He found the front desk and was beckoned forward by the polite staff. He provided a Canadian passport under the name Darren Patch and made small talk in English with the desk clerk, mentioning he'd just climbed off a flight from Budapest and was happy he'd been able to book an early arrival time for a hotel. He was also hoping to get a room on the 4th floor, he said, because his wife would be joining him later in the day, and they'd stayed in room 407 for 2 nights on their honeymoon years earlier. With a proud smile, the clerk confirmed to Mr. Patch that suite 407 was available and ready. A minute later, the man stepped into an elevator crowded with a family of 6, all of whom were coming back up from breakfast. The father pressed the button for the 4th floor, and then asked the lone man which floor he was staying. I'm on 4-2, thanks, he said, then looked around at the children. The kids' ages ranged from 4 to 12, and the man in the sport coat looked straight ahead, while the parents began a conversation about visiting a museum later in the day. The elevator stopped, Inside Suite 401, Anya Balakova spun around to Ina and Maxine, who were both watching local news, following the story of a murder the evening before at the edge of the table. While they did this, Semyon was putting luggage in her car in the underground garage 2 blocks away. Anya said, "The family in 403 is big, but there's another guy with them." Ina rushed over and watched the man on camera. "He's not with them. He's got his own key card in his hand." The family entered the door just to the left of Zakharova's suite at the end of the hall. The man held the card over the lock of the door directly to the right of the suite, and then disappeared inside. "Did you get an image of his face?" "Not much of it. He looks like he's just a guest." Ina kept her eyes on this room. "Look him up. Suite 407. What's his name? When did he go?" Ina turned to Maxine, who wasn't paying attention to the new arrival at all. She said, "Make sure you use the full suppressor, not the short version. The family in 403 is big for breakfast. There is a new man in 406. Abdullah looked up from the couch. "You are telling me how to prepare my gun, Ina?" Balakova tapped keys on one of the laptops. After a moment, she saw the booking. "He made the reservation online at 1:45 a.m. Darren Patch from Windsor, Ontario, Canada." The image on the screen from the passport scanned by the hotel showed a man in his late 30s or early 40s with short hair, a beard, and glasses. He looked to all of them like some sort of plain businessman. "Check out the source," Ina commanded, and Balakova searched for the man's LinkedIn listing. She found him and saw that he was a food and beverage consultant. He had an Instagram page as well, with lots of pictures of restaurants, food, and spirits. Interspersed were just a few pictures of himself with the family, and a few more that showed images of camping and fishing. Balakova said, "Either he's legit or his cover is very well vaccinated." Ina thought it over. "Okay, we can't discount him as a threat, even though it looks like he checks out. Semyon will go right behind Maxine, run rear security just inside the doorway to the suite. Anya and I..."
How's your day, okay?
Yeah.
She looked to Maxine, expecting some pushback, and said,
Lạnh
just
quá.
nodded his
Không,
assent.
không phải. Today send some TV
So they
routine.
returned to her suite and
Tomorrow they will interview one good couple.
Before she even showered, she placed an order with
Let
room
me
service
see.
for food and coffee for herself, moises and youngins, a cheese omelet for her, and 2 baskets of croissants, jelly, and butter for the evening. She added a large flask of both orange and lemon juice and a full pot of coffee. At 8:35 a.m., she stepped into the shower, taking her
Nó có một cái đường video, thấy không?
Yeah, he's staying there. Yeah, he goes back and forth.
Even when she didn't know without question that Edmund had tracked her down, she still kept a firearm in or near her shower. She'd been trained to never be caught in that. And though that concept wasn't ideal,
Oh, tomorrow I will have the dinner with my team. They have
the new guest in
they
room
will have the
407
we will have the dinner and then
his eyes fixed
watch the
on the wall
movie.
in
But
front of
I
him,
just
his
attend for dinner only. I think around 7 p.m. or 6:30.
Alright, where?
I will send you the rest. Maybe Vincom,
Okay.
V1. Yeah. Now they book the film, Vietnamese film. Yeah. Because you see next week is a Women's Day.
Oh, okay, yeah, 20th. Yeah, yeah, it's my brother's birthday. So,
Yeah. So they will
He'd used a CIA
have dinner
backstop
and watch film
Alright.
tonight and tomorrow night.
He knew the agency would easily monitor guests here at the hotel.
It's Monday.
Sitting next to the U.S. Embassy, it would be the
So
height
we
of
see
malfeasance content. But the legend wasn't tied to Corey personally, since Hanley hadn't made for someone else and had the The face on the passport looked something, but the passport photo showed
tomorrow I will pick up this
all court was now clear. But it
because
was not
today I bought orange.
nor were the images on
I
social
didn't
media.
want to get some orange.
He had decided without doubt to be
I have too much food already.
before while he was at Dr. Kaya's clinic.
Did you eat something
He
today?
couldn't trust
Yeah.
Brewer to run Zoya safely, and he couldn't trust Brewer or him.
Oh, by the way, I'm not going to laundry anymore, so the dirty clothes you put in, you're gonna have to wash it yourself.
Oh,
Because I'm not the dirty laundry I have. I'm just gonna bring her back to the U.S. and wash it over there. Because I have enough clothes, you know, for the I'm only gonna be here for like 3 days. I haven't have enough clothes. So
Okay.
I'm not gonna like.
Let me be to my home tomorrow or
He also
Sunday.
knew he needed to make contact with without anyone from Shrek, anyone from Russia, anyone from the CIA, or anyone from Germany. Knocking on her door was out. He had to assume that someone would be monitoring the hall of the campus for visitors. This left the window. Climbing along the outside of the building might have been the surest way to avoid
And the
but
camera,
it was certainly not
you want us will come to
moved laterally along the
It doesn't matter. We'll fix it. It's not it.
She didn't have a balcony.
Like,
so you want their like
well, yeah, if they can give us a replacement, but they're gonna ask for all everything. They ask for all the wires and shit. Wait, let me make this turn.
He decided this would be the easiest place to enter, although it was also much farther away than the first access point he'd come to on the bench, which, according to his research on the layout of the suite, would be the bedroom. Court knew Zoya's senses were feeling full alert, which didn't really scare him once she realized it wasn't the hotel. But he did worry about that moment when he passed in front of the window. Someone trained, someone who was already anticipating an assassination attempt, who saw a figure outside while shooting on the There were other drawbacks to Court's plan as well. The main one being that he would have to execute this move on the third floor, which, in typical European fashion, meant it was 5 stories above the street. He would be in full view of anyone looking up from the internet, so he knew he'd have to move quick to avoid Court's attention, but not to catch him wandering. Still, moving over to the next suite's window, standing under the hallway candles, he already
Yes, it. Okay.
Drummed his fingers on the pad. Brewer had said Zoya told her that her colleagues were to arrive at 10 a.m., and it wasn't till 9. He had time to get out of here. He just needed to act. Soon enough, he climbed over the window, put his luggage on the table, and unzipped his robe. Seconds later, he was changing out of his businessman clothes as he prepared to get down into his real business. 44. Malakova hung up her call and turned to Sorokin, who sipped from a teacup while standing to the kitchen oven. Under said, "Скоро фальцеваются стекинцы." Maxim Akhlov stepped out of the bedroom. He looked neat and healthy despite the white service attendant's uniform. His hair was slicked back with gel, and he had a confident and determined smile on his face. He was fine now, because the excitement filled his bloodstream like a drug. It wasn't the high he used to get from such endeavors. One needed more and more of the drug to get the same effects. But this was his best day, his best moment in over 6 weeks. The Russian carried 3 knives, a weighted throwing blade under his server's belt on his left, a second throwing knife just behind it at the 8 o'clock position, and another hooked blade stowed center line behind his belt buckle. It was his intention to use this weapon to slit Zakharova's wrists after he got him into the battle. In Maxim's hand, he held an unholstered CZ subcompact pistol with an Anschutz suppressor screwed onto the barrel. The Anschutz had a unique design that made it look like a long, fat drill bit. Concealing the weapon on his person would have been difficult, especially to an eye as trained as Zakharova's, so he slipped it under the linen draping of a room service card and adjusted the fabric to where the weapon did not materialize. Still, it would be easily accessible to him, and he'd have it out hanging his target's face as soon as she opened the door. The target had the training, as well as the heads up from Minal the night before, the audacious weapon, to know that an assassination attempt would be coming, so she'd likely be armed herself. But despite Minal's pleas for Maxim to respect Serena's abilities, he had no doubt in his mind that he could get his weapon trained on her long before she could get hers trained on him. The Russians were banking on her assuming they wouldn't dare make the attempt here in the hotel, since this wasn't typical GRU or SVR assassination techniques for work anywhere in Vienna. But it had worked in DC, and Maxim felt comfortable it would work again. Semyon also had a CZ pistol, and it was suppressed as well, but he clicked it into an open shoulder holster, with the silencer pointing straight down, and then he put on his jacket, hiding the weapon. For the first time in years, Maxim was back in charge. 2 minutes. walked over to the minibar, unscrewed a single airplane bump like Jack Daniels, and downed it in oil.
Giờ mình đang còn 65% pin.
Only one deal. Keeps me steady.
Hậu
Enoch
xếp
turned away, back to the monitor, and with
Tonight you will help us cut off wind up.
Maxime rolled the cart up next to the closed door, scooted past it,
Cut off?
looked for the people. It
Help
was full of breakfast.
set up.
Set up.
Omelets, ham and cheese croissant, coffee, orange juice, all resting on the plates underneath stainless steel plate.
Kích pin rồi.
They had
Nhưng mà
purchased the
chưa
food
có con
downstairs
bé
in the
pin nó
restaurant
có
an hour
pin
earlier,
wifi chưa?
anticipating this morning's operation. Basing the order on foods their target had ordered on previous mornings over the past 2 weeks. Maxime and Semyon would have to remove all the food that had been caught along with the cameras after the hit, so as not to arouse suspicions of the police or hotels. But bringing actual food helped them get through the door if a suspicious Sakura reported them to remove the plate was well checked out. Semyon stepped up close behind Maxime, ready to rush down to the opposite end of the hallway as his leader had been entering on Zakharov's. Enoch called to the leader of the Russian band. Don't forget that patch in 407. I don't like the coincidence of the fighting age man pitting weapon against the person right before the revolution. Semyon did not acknowledge the intel officer. He just put his hand on Maxime's shoulder, gave the smaller man a squeeze, and counted down the
On
time.
the corner where I know
Enoch
big
put
fuck
her
chạm
hand
á.
on your shoulder as well, and she looked at the CCTV live through the hall. After a moment,
There and there and many coffee
she's
shops.
still in bed, unpleasant and reported. Put me out. Anya tapped some keys, and Enoch saw a quick switch in the hall before they once again displayed the hall. Maxime opened the door, pulled the cart into the hall, but he stopped abruptly. 15 meters ahead, the elevator turned, and he heard the doors open. Quickly, he stepped back inside the door and looked out through the keyhole. Anya called out what she saw on her. She said, "Look that off the hood." He turned the lamp to the far end of the hall. Enoch asked, "Can you see his face?" "Yeah, what is it?" Shit. Enoch told us. Zakharov has come. We need to abort. Maxime did not reply to this. He only continued watching through the keyhole as the man walked away from him.
So we will go home and we'll come around 9 p.m.
We need to abort Maxime, Enoch said again. Zoya had stepped out of the shower, wrapped her hair in a towel, and dried herself off with an onion. She entered the bedroom and chose a pair of black jeans, a white bra, and a white silk top from her closet. She began dressing at a leisurely pace until she heard a knock at the door. It could be room service, she knew, but Zoya wasn't taking any chances. She grabbed the safe, still wet from the shower, and she pushed the weapon into her waistband in the small of the bag as she walked through the living room to a door. She looked out through the peephole while securing a few buttons on her shirt, tucking the rest in front to clasp it shut, and then she stood upright, a look of surprise on her face. It was Ennis. After checking the peephole again to be certain he was alone, she opened the door. Her gun was still up, and her right hand hovered back in. Ennis wasn't tortured bitter, but she assumed he was the one that gave her the Moscow. Ennis moved in quickly with an intense hysteria, but no words. "You didn't tell me you were coming," she said. "Yeah?" The man was agitated. This was clear. "Yeah? Well, you didn't tell me about last night, did you?" "Last night? You mean about the Russian assassins who gave me one opportunity to go back with them to Moscow so I could be executed by firing squad? Who did you tell about this?" He cocked his head in surprise. "The Russians? They're here? They know?" Zoya nodded. "Don't miss it. That's what it is." She cocked her head, relaxed her grip on the weapon behind her. "What were you talking about?" "Miriam called me half hour ago. Her contacts told her that BFV was following both of these together. You didn't go up to your room like you told me. You went for a walk. An intelligence officer followed you. An officer following me was attacked and injured. Here, you and I were both burned. Miriam wants us to get out of town." There was nothing in the world so
Okay.
Safety first. Pack quickly. We could be on a train in a half hour. She said to herself. Her operation was falling apart around her. 45. In Suite 401, Anya kept her eyes on the hidden cameras inside her own suite's panel hall. It looks like they're fighting, arguing about something.
Anya said that no
You know,
to
positive the reason.
get the battery
Ines
full
held out the
Yeah.
from 20
He
to
wants to
80.
know why
Yeah.
she's arguing with the audience. She's
I keep it from
because
20
we
to
are,
80.
and she blames
Yeah.
this. Then she looked back to Maxine and said a third time, "Abort. We stand down till he leaves." But Maxine shook his head. Yet, you're going. Ina couldn't believe what she was saying. What's wrong with you? You know your orders. It's supposed to look like a suicide? Yeah, it is. He spun to the other three dramatically, a flourish of his hand like an actor on the stage. The Sid course of events. Two work colleagues are meeting for an early morning meeting. When this interfered, no one in their office involved. An argument breaks out between them. Infidelity, jealousy.
Just give me a whole box.
refusal to leave another man. Whoever it is, it gets heavy. She pulls a gun. Emotion. She doesn't use it, but it makes it too powerful to wave it around. Anya and Zero stared with rapt attention. Ina looked at me, but she was clearly convinced. The gun goes off. Mr. Ennis is killed. Zakharova is stunned by what she's done, but ultimately resolute. The poor girl then turns the attack on herself. Ina's look blinked in surprise. You're saying a murder-suicide? Maxine nodded, a smile growing wider as he winked at Semyon, slapped him on the arm, and opened the door. That could work, Ina said, but she said it to Maxine Uppermont's back, because he was already heading out the door with his cart full of food. In Suite 405, Ennis stood just inside the door, and Zoya stood in the middle of the living room, her back to the open windows overlooking Fontaine. I'm not leaving Berlin. I have a job to do for Shrek, and the killing of General Rajavi last night is only going to make Iranian operations what's more of a
Trinh nặng dữ vậy anh?
We are blown. I'm blown by the Germans at the very end. But you are compromised.
We got flowers in the back. What do you want to do with them from yesterday? Flowers?
Đúng rồi, nó đâu anh?
It's in the back, way back. Trunk. You want them?
Yeah.
Alright.
Em quên.
No, it's in the back.
Đúng không? Trang ơi.
This is bigger than you know. This is more dangerous.
Gì nặng dữ vậy? Cái này. Xong rồi hình như anh có để cho em cái
Before fighting, the drone straight and back to the president. What about it? There is an assumption that the Iranians will retaliate. But what if I told you the Iranians are being set up? What do you mean? For the last 6 months, Shrike has been creating a trail of Iranian intel officers at their Berlin embassy. A trail that leads them to Quds force bunkers in Iran. A link that doesn't exist. But Miriam was tasked with finding the Quds bunkers, learning their patterns, putting them under surveillance. But my team, we were tasked with taking Miriam's intelligence and using it to plant physical evidence on the sleeper cell and on embassy intelligence staff at the same. We created payment records. We've altered files in their systems. Our entire objective for the past 6 months has been to build linkage between the embassy and the sleepers. I thought we were just bringing them to get cuts expelled and to get EU sanctions.
lấy mấy này ra luôn.
But now I have
Take it out.
so that the Iranians
Saturday we will
tied to any attacks they carried out, even if the Iranian government didn't order the attacks.
What time are we leaving? Saturday morning?
I think 9 a.m.
Bingo. The cells
Because
we've
Saturday
uncovered
off.
across Europe are sleeper cells.
Ngày
They are connected to
Blue.
Kudsworth, but they are more or less.
Ugh.
If the group here planted the bomb in the Reichstag, Iran could simply say the cell went wrong, disavow them completely. But if Shrike was able to convince Germany that the cell was getting its marching orders, its money, its material directly from the Iranian embassy, I mean, shit. A knock at the door turned
Yeah, a lot of cars gonna be
just feet behind.
there.
So they kept your position, reach behind
go, go.
Ennis didn't even look for the peacock before swimming.
Rồi là bấm chỗ nào?
His face
Em không biết không.
It's the beard. I tried to run an SDR. They might have been with
Em không nghĩ là bên này
Zoya
là
said,
nghe gì.
I ordered room service for me and the nurse. Yes, she refused. Ennis looked out the peephole and blew out the relief sigh. Thank God. By now, Zoya had drawn her pistol. She held it behind her back, and she was heading for the door herself to try. She was halfway across the living room when Ennis reached for the direction. Wait, let me see, she said, but Ennis ignored her and opened the door. Maxime shoved the door with his shoulder, knocking Ennis all the way to the floor as he did so. The assassin brought up the suppressed pistol to his eyes, aiming it straight at Zoya's upper lip. The attractive Russian woman had raised her own weapon simultaneously, and now she pointed it at Opera. Neither fired. Maxime had an easy kill shot right now on his stomach, but he knew she would like to
Nó
cover
anh
her
xem tập
trajectory.
lái.
It was a stand move, using the self-defense. Maxime was considering shooting
Lái những cái xe mà
so
không có
it
biệt
was
hình. Lái đi
but
cái
he would press the trigger. This wouldn't be the clean kill as nation would. The American man stood back up, positioning himself within arm's reach of the Russian assassin's pistol. But Maxime wasn't worried about this. He was ready to move to the left towards the kitchen, and he must move in his direction. What the fuck is going on? His voice tinged with fear. Maxime said nothing.
Cái câu mà what the fuck là ông sếp em hay nói lắm luôn á.
He took 2 steps back and shifted from a two-handed grip to a one-handed fuck seizing. With his left, he reached behind him and unlatched the door. Semyon burst into the room, his own weapon's silencer scanning the scene before locking out to Ennis. He held his weapon steady as he pulled the room service car inside to get it out of the hall, rolling it into the center of the living room next to the sofa and feet first. Then he went back and shut and chained the door with one hand, while his still steady weapon was centered between Ennis's wide eyes. Hervak looked at Zoya, then shifted his aim quickly to her. Maxime smiled. He spoke calmly and confidently. Are you going to shoot us both before we turn your pretty face into something ugly and call it a again? Zoya lowered her pistol, then tossed it on the floor of the living room next to her. She raised her hands. Really rude. Maxime spoke 2 words in Russian. Please tell me. Zoya understood, which meant she knew what was coming next. Yes! Semyon Pierrefort followed his leader's orders to shoot him, shifting aim again, firing once into Rick Hesse's right, less than 2 meters distance.
So when are you gonna get the dog?
Snapped to the center. Blood sprayed the wallpaper behind him.
When are you gonna get the dog? When?
Straight back over the sofa.
The dog rising or the dog pudding car.
No. Well, when are you gonna get it? Well, you're gonna buy a dog, right?
Not yet.
Okay, are you thinking about it?
Yeah. Small dog vậy.
Yeah.
Nhưng mà chăm khó lắm. Take care.
Yeah. Your kids will take care of it. Your kids are old enough.
Later.
Understood. He turned his attention back. Now, Sabina. Zoya looked down at Rick Hesse's father, then back up to the brain matter streaming slowly down the wall. Finally, she turned her attention again to the assassin in the room service attendant's uniform. She forced her voice to remain calm as she spoke. In Russian, she said, "You're Maxime." "Yeah," he replied, and lowered the threat. "Tell yourself that if it helps you sleep, nothing else is needed." Turning around, he entered. Zoya's back was to the open floor to ceiling window, and the concave metal railing 1.5 meters in height just outside gave the door a tiny opening. She did not turn around, face down. She said, "You have a small pistol with a large silencer. You would have shot me between the eyes as soon as you came through the door if your rules of engagement allowed it. You have to make this more than kill yourself, don't you? Clever girl. And how will you explain the extra body?" She motioned to Ennis, lying heap to Maxime's right. Maxime said, "I don't have to. That's the very awkward job of the surviving relatives of both yourself and Mr. Ennis. Honestly, I don't have to." Zoya took a slow breath, then lifted her chin. "You need my help to make it look like." She stared down at the store. Good luck. She was 100% faking her self-assurance. She was terrified and saw few, if any, options. But she needed to stop until she could find some sort of note. And while she and Maxime were talking, he wasn't in the process of murdering her. So she wanted to keep this dialogue going until an opportunity presented itself. A moment later, however, it seemed the stalling would become clearer. Maxime spoke to his colleague standing closer to the kitchen. I have a new idea. Toss her out the window. She said. Court gently placed one booted foot directly in front of the other, then shuffled another step. It was slow, but finally he made it past the windowsill outside Zoe's bedroom and back on the kitchen. The larger living room windows were and moving at the pace he'd been going since leaving his own window, he figured he'd be exposed up here on the 5th floor for another 30 seconds. He couldn't tell the status of the living room windows.
That's where she work.
Inward and his face was pressed against the warm stone at the door.
She's probably gonna have to park in here.
The amphetamine in his bloodstream managed to spike his adrenaline even more than a narrow walk on a 60-foot high dirt
Ưu đãi cái này nó có kinh là
and the
dành
feeling of
cho
helplessness at home sharp pangs of anxiety through his mind. He pressed his face tighter against the wall, scraping his chin, and he told himself, not for the first time, that he should have become an accountant. And then he took another shuffle step closer to the window. Semyon Birbal holstered his weapon under his arm, covered it with his jacket, and then moved forward, closing the door. He was careful not to cross in
5
front
giờ
of
38.
Maxime.
Get out, get out.
He knew Zakharova would die, but the handgun she dropped on the floor, she saw even a moment's chance. So the big Russian knew better than to give her an opportunity. He stepped around, approaching her from her left side.
What this?
He spun her around, twisting her right arm behind her back.
Anh đợi chút.
And it took all his strength to overcome her. You are strong, he said to her. If you're not strong, then you will be enough. He replied. Semyon Birbal began pushing Zakharova from behind, towards the opening 5 stories above the street. Yes! She screamed. She started to scream again, but the big man's hand slammed hard over her mouth and face, bloodying her nose in the process, while he all but gagged her. This done, he used his other hand to shove her. The Russian woman fought him hard for each step, but slowly she lost ground, her bare feet scooting across the oriental rug and across the wooden floor as she was forced closer and closer to the window. Behind her, she heard Maxime Apollon speak, his voice still calm and confident. Here's how it will be written. You couldn't make yourself put a gun in your mouth and then kill your lover, so you opted for a shot. Zoya was shoved all the way out, her thighs pressed hard against the railing. She clenched the steel bar tight with her free hand, screamed through the powerful hand covering her mouth, then tried desperately to shake it free. In doing this, she turned to the left, and harder.
Này.
She blinked. It was Court. His eyes were wide in shock at what he was witnessing before him. His